12:33 p.m. The building has been officially closed for 33 minutes. The lights are dimmed in many areas and completely out in others. The daycare is about to go dark for the night. But before it does, the daytime animatronic hummed to himself merrily while checking the arts and crafts storage for the 8th and final time that night. He had a little bit of OCD, not that he minded. It helped him with his job, mainly with the organizing part. He was about to head out and find Moon when the lights were killed. That's odd. Usually Sun and Moon turn the lights out together, or warned the other first at least.
Moon? Did you do that?
Sun asked cautiously. He wasn't sure if Moon could hear him. He was honestly too afraid to speak loud enough for his voice to travel. Sun may have been a little itty bitty afraid of the dark, so he wasn't too keen on moving or speaking very loudly at the moment. He still needed to know what was going on though. He took a wobbly step towards the doorway to begin investigating. That's when he saw it. Two tiny white lights in the blackened doorway, like eyes staring him down. That was just his imagination, right? It certainly scared a gasp out of him. And then they blinked. Sun was petrified with terror. That wasn't Moon, and it wasn't his imagination either. Suddenly, like a flash, a dark mass rushed toward him, until he felt it coiling around him, tendrils of darkness swarming around him, and a bony hand placed over his mouth. A low chuckle sounded from behind his head, practically right in his left auditory sensor. Sun let out a few muffled screams before the hand left his face, and so did the rest of the dark being. But even with said being walking back towards the door, the dark tendrils that wrapped around Sun's arms and legs stayed. Sun sunk to the floor helplessly squirming, trying to free himself, but the hold was impossibly strong.
Sun, are you alright?
Moon's voice echoed throughout the daycare and bounced into the room. The call clearly startled the dark form as it swiftly flew to the corner of the room to hide, leaving Sun to be found wriggling uselessly on the floor.
Moon! Oh, thank goodness! I'm in here!
Sun squeaked out. Moon immediately rushed into the room, only to find Sun on the floor wrapped up in black rope? He didn't really have time to figure that part out before he was blindsided by a great force. It wasn't painful in the least, but he felt his arms pinned to his sides and his legs strained against the force pulling them together.
Wait! No!
Sun screamed out. Why didn't he warn Moon?
Get off me! What the?
Quiet.
The figure whispered. It was almost like a taunting purr. The figure was so dark, it's hard to truly see with the light out. Even with his night vision, Moon couldn't make out a body from the darkness they were engulfed in. The only thing they could see were the lights at the center of its eyes.
What are you doing? What are you? I swear if you don't let us go right...
Moon's rant was cut short by a dark tendril covering his mouth.
I said, be quiet. You don't want to scare the others, do you?
Although deep, the voice seemed more playful than threatening. Moon didn't care though. He was pissed. No one gets the jump on him, and no one touches Sun with even a hint of ill intent. He continued to growl at the intruder, his eyes glowing bright red.
Now, why don't you two come with me? I can't tell you just how hungry I am. It feels as though it's been ages since my last meal.
He looked directly at Sun as he leaned down to pick him up.
And you look absolutely scrumptious.
Sun was already shaking a bit out of fear, but it had grown to full-blown trembling after those words. Was this thing going to eat him? But he was metal and plastic and rubber and silicone. Why would it want to eat him? But the choice in words implied that being fully intended to do just that. Sun's fearful thoughts continued to dominate his mind as he was slung gently over the shoulder of the dark mass. Moon was next to be picked up, but due to his incessant squirming, the entity opted to hold Moon under its arm for a better grip. As they traveled down a back stairwell and began descending down them, Sun spoke with a shaky voice.
But where are you taking us?
To my dining room.
But this is the basement.
Precisely where the perfect table is. Don't worry, we're almost there.
After exiting the stairwell, the two apprehended bots were carried into one of the special maintenance rooms, one that was usually reserved for Monty's model. Just in case he woke up during repairs. They may have had an incident or two before Fazbear Cove finally put it in a table with heavy-duty straps installed to keep the employees safe. Employees and fellow animatronics alike. Rest in peace, staff bots. Sun and Moon had never used this room. Sun didn't even know it existed until now. The sunny daycare attendant's eyes grew wide at the sight of the table and the leather straps and cuffs lying uselessly on its metal surface.
Wait. Is that...
The table I was referring to? Yes.
The DAs could hear the smirk in the voice of their captor. After laying Sun on the table, the mysterious form sat Moon down on the counter to his right. Then he shut the door behind him and flipped on the lights, now that they had some privacy. At the same time, the tendrils that were covering Moon's mouth vanished and the yelling began. Well, it would have, if Moon wasn't busy taking the sight of the being before him. It looked like an animatronic, a very skeletal one. It was very dark. Its clothes, more like armor, were almost pitch black, as well as its face, and wore a cape made of pure shadow. It was very tall and very intimidating to look at. With long, bony fingers tipped with jet black claws, it had spiraling rays with the tiniest dusting of what looked to be nebulas and stars on the ends, and big black eyes with white lights for pupils. Finally, it had a permanent, wide, jagged grin stretched across his face. At the sight, had he been capable of doing so, Sun would have fainted. This bot looked like he was the type to eat little bots like him. Moon wasn't any better off than Sun after seeing the entity for the first time. They both just stared. After much too long, Moon finally broke from his trance and spoke.
What are you?
Devo. That's all you need to know for now.
He replied. It almost sounded like a tease. Almost everything this guy said sounded like a tease. Moon did not like it at all. The tendrils around Sun seemed to loosen and fade as Devo began to arrange the smaller ball on the table. Everything began to become more clear to Sun. This truly seemed to be a moment of life and death. So he fought back. Sun struggled hard in the other's grip. Man, this guy was strong! Regardless, Sun continued to kick and squirm.
No! Let go of me! You can't do this! I'll kick your butt, you sorry excuse for a robot!
You tell him, son.
Moon shouted in encouragement, continuing to wrestle with his own binds.
Oh, your tough words are adorable, little star.
Devo crooned at Sun's attempts at family-friendly insults.
How about we make a deal?
Why would I ever make the deal with you?
Sun yelled back.
If you behave and let me get you settled, I promise I won't eat your little friend.
Sun was about to shout more refusals at the offender, but...
If I let you... You won't hurt Mooney?
That's right.
Son! No! Don't listen to him!
Moon became frantic at this point.
You promise?
Of course.
Sun contemplated the deal. If it would really shield Moon from receiving the same fate.
Oh, okay. I'll do it.
No!
Moon screeched as Sun surrendered to the battle, finally allowing Devo to strap him down.
There we go. Was that so hard?
Sun gulped down at the teasing purrs. He glanced at Moon with an apologetic expression. This could be the last he saw of him.
Bye, Mooney. Take care of the kids.
Moon did not want to take that as an answer.
No! Get the hell away from him! I swear!
Devo interrupted, hardly turning to look at Moon.
It's hard to eat with all that screaming.
Moon didn't stop though, until Devo's defiance moved to shut his mouth and shut with his jaw again. Devo purred, lowering his face to Sun and opening his bear trap of a mouth. Sun squeezed his eyes shut as tight as he could, prepared for the oncoming pain, expecting it at least, but it never came. Instead, Sun felt 3 little pokes to his side, each one causing a ticklish shock to his abdomen. Testing the consistency of his exoskeleton, he presumed.
Oh, goodness! Why isn't he stopping?
The slow poking extended to more than just his sides. He tested his ribs, his tummy, his din.
What?
His eyes flew open upon the lack of tearing and biting he had expected. Devo concentrated completely on Sun's belly, pupils dilated. The skeletal creature let out a little gasp at the reaction, curved rays fluttering slightly in glee. Sun giggled, trying to pull himself away from curious pokes, confused and terrified. Moon could barely believe it. What was he doing? Devo nipped at the air, a light yellow glitter now covering his tongue that seemed to have appeared out of nowhere.
It tastes different.
His rays stopped fluttering, seeming to realize a harsh truth. He shook his head, focusing his attention back on Sun.
No matter. I must feed.
Devo went in with his entire hand, lightly scratching the poor quivering belly below, summoning a shocked squeal in pure serotonin. Is there something Moon was missing here? Sun squealed out. That hand! Those claws tickled terribly as they did their strange little dance on his belly. It's almost as if the shadow meant to.
How adorable. And so tasty, too. Tickle, tickle.
He did! Sun let out another squeal as his body tried everything to escape the attack on reflex. This wasn't anything like he was expecting. Why was he tickling of all things? Moon, on the other hand, was beside himself. He didn't know what to think. He thought he was just about to lose his best friend, and now? He's watching him being tickled by some stranger. Moon didn't like that. This brute thinks he can barge into the daycare, scare the out of Sun and him, and kidnap both of them? Take him to parts and service, a place they don't feel safe in, and then start to tickle someone without asking him?
Hey!
Moon snapped angrily, glaring at the tall skeletal being.
Stop that right now.
Devo gasped, retracting his hand, letting Sun catch his breath.
What is your deal? Aren't you here to hurt us? You stole us away because you just wanted to.
Moon gestured with a head nod to his currently panting counterpart, glaring the giant black hole down.
Do this? You didn't even make sure it was okay. We don't know you. This kind of thing takes trust, care. Sun is scared.
Devo knew that. He hated it. But everyone was scared of him. It was only natural, as he had been told. Devo visibly shrunk back, the ache of his being reminding him of his limited time, his hunger.
I apologize. I let my hunger get the better of me.
Hunger?
I shall be on my way. I will never disturb you two again.
The dark soul responded in a sad but genuine manner, seeing himself off towards the exit. The glitter? The tickling? Did he eat laughter? No, they can't just let him.
Wait!
Sun shouted, startling the creature of darkness back into the shadows, shock lacing his blank features.
I'm okay with it. Alright?
Sun smiled gently, still anxious at the previous encounter. Understanding Devo's intention helped ease Sun's fears at least. Moon gave a concerned look at his counterpart. The shadows holding him were loosened when Devo tried to leave, but after the being swept into the shadows, the hold tightened again. Possibly out of reflex? What was Sun doing? Moon still hadn't connected the dots just yet, too angry to focus on the details of the situation.
Sun, what are you doing?
It's alright. You can come back out.
Sun beckoned gently to the shadow, paying no mind to Moon's words. The two lights in the darkened corner of the room blinked a few times before moving forward, out into the open again. The form avoided eye contact with the nighttime animatronic, choosing to focus on the sweet smile of the daytime bot. Sun admittedly began to feel the need to cover his tickle spots as Devo drew closer, now that he knew what was to come. His smile wobbled, growing from the giddy nervousness that began bubbling within.
You need to eat. right? So, go ahead. I don't mind.
Sun's feet waved side to side nervously, causing the jingle of his shoe bells to fill the silence in the room. Devo slowly crept closer, his large black eyes narrowed at the bright animatronic. The action reminded Sun of an owl somewhat.
Why the sudden change of attitude?
It almost sounded a bit untrusting. Moon was just as confused at his friend's actions.
Oh, well, you don't really seem that bad. And you didn't hurt us. Gave us a scare, sure, but it doesn't seem like you mean any actual harm.
Son, what are you?
Moon, look at him.
Sun peacefully argued, directing his eyes towards Devo.
Tell me, what was the entire reason we're down here in the first place?
It felt like he wanted to hurt us.
An opinion isn't fact, Moon.
Ouch. Devo hadn't meant to come off that way. Perhaps the methods he had taught by his elders were incorrect? Fear wasn't necessary, nor was it unavoidable. He didn't intend to hurt them. Being forceful was part of the method, right? That was how to feed properly, right? To just take things? Perhaps not.
He said he wanted to eat. Not that he wanted to eat us. He eats laughter. Why else would he want to tickle me?
Oh.
I didn't think about that.
The glitter. Was that what Sun's laugh looked like? It was making sense now. Moon sighed, looking up at the darkened.
If Sun's really okay with it, then I guess so am I.
Moon struggled getting the last part out.
Would you mind? Right over here, buddy.
Moon wriggled around to display that there were still tendrils holding him.
Oh, right, of course.
The tendrils backed off. The confidence Devo had before was practically gone.
Apologies.
Aw, it's okay. Let's start over. I'm Sun, or Sunny if you prefer. That's Mooney. You said yours was Devo, right?
Sun greeted cheerily. It looked ridiculous. Sun being so happy-go-lucky while still strapped to a maintenance table. But such a thing was well within Sun's character. He was always eager to make a friend. The shadow animatronic gave a nod, confirming Sun's question.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
It is nice to meet you.
Devo tilted his head in confusion. He had never encountered such customs before. Practicing a couple of times to himself, he looked back at Sun.
It's nice to meet you too.
Sun excitedly turned to Moon as if to say,
Did you hear that? Wasn't that the cutest thing?
It was silent for a moment.
So, aren't you going to do that thing, Devo?
Sun spoke up, that bashfulness from before coming back. Devo stilled, his rays closing inward slightly, similarly to a flower going to sleep.
Yes. Forgive me.
Sun's rays immediately started to turn to that. How is he this wholesome? Even Moon had to admit the moment was quite endearing. Taking a light breath in, Devo walked back to Sun, reaching back over to his tummy. Sun's eyes widened as he watched the skeletal hand reclaim its previous position over his belly. He couldn't help but tense up, instinctively trying to draw his limbs inward to protect himself, but they stayed put and out of Devo's way. Sun was already struggling to keep his anticipatory giggles inside as they threatened to bubble out. Devo licked the air with his long tongue, catching all the giggles like a child catching snowflakes on their tongue, gently prodding across the tickler's tummy. Devo tried a new method to tickle inspired by the continuous observation of the daycare duo. He leaned in a bit closer, tracing one hand along Sun's rib area, up and down, while the other claw stayed put on his tummy, spiraling a bit. Dead already? Goodness! While Devo was lapping up with laughter bubbling out of Sun, the void accidentally licked Sun's side. The new feeling caught Sun off guard. It was like a puppy giving an unexpected kiss, and in reaction, Sun just couldn't help but squeal, immediately leaning away from the new tickly appendage. Devo narrowed his eyes at the reaction as he began chuckling.
Oh my. What was that?
Nothing!
Sun clammed up, eyes wide as ever. Oh man, that tickled so much. Was Devo going to Sun made eye contact with the dark entity. Seemed Devo was starting to loosen up as a devious smirk stretched across his face.
Oh, nothing? It appears it may be something.
Devo pretended to tap his chin and thought, a deviously playful side of him coming out.
How peculiar.
He licked Sun's tummy with a spiraling hand coming up to meet the other on his ribcage.
I could have sworn. I heard something.
It tickled terribly and on his worst spot. Sun snorted, throwing his head back, relishing in the new breed of tickly sensations. He supposed he actually really liked helping Devo out with his food problem. How often could they do this? Meanwhile, watching from the sidelines, Moon grew impressed by how good Devo was doing for his supposed first time tickling someone. Too good. Huh. Well, he's okay, he guessed. Took a long time for Moon to learn how to tickle well. It was in his programming to begin with, but mastering the different teases and tactics and combining them took time. But the rate Devo was learning, it just wasn't fair. Moon's supposed to be the best tickle monster. It's his job. Wait, is he getting jealous of Devo's skill? Preposterous.
You know, I bet I found more of Sunny's tickle spots than you will.
Moon challenged, smirking a bit.
It would make sense with how many times I've seen the two of you play this game.
Moon blinked. Did he just...
You've been watching us?
For how long? And since when? Where did this guy come from?
For a bit. How else would I have known Sunny here was so ticklish?
Sun and Moon both blushed at the realization that they may not have been so alone in those moments after all. Whoopsie. Moon shook his head to re-enter reality.
Well, Sunny is awfully loud.
Moon commented with a chuckle.
I'm not!
Sun shouted in defense, only demonstrating that he was indeed a rather loud bot.
Too.
Moon teased, sticking his own tongue out at his counterpart. Sun let out an irritated huff through his laughter. Devo chuckled as he started up again, now lapping up to his ribcage and bringing the claws down to the spot he was previously at, tickling the dent. He paused for a moment, so he wouldn't bite his tongue off.
You aren't any better, Moondrop. Careful what you say.
Gotcha!
Sun squealed, barely able to tease Moon through his laughter. Moon gasped in defense, choosing to retaliate by calling on his hips on instinct.
Take it.
Not even a flinch or giggle. Moon looked up at Devo, who was smirking down him, pausing as soon as the attack registered.
That will never work on me. I do not have nerves or sensors.
Devo informed with a low chuckle. Moon launched himself back as if he had touched fire. He was certainly playing with fire, that's for sure. He's probably going to regret that later.
That's not fair!
Devo hummed, moving to leap into the dent, earning another loud squeal from Sun.
Fairness has no part of it, my dear son. It's just how I was made, I suppose. Nothing that can be done about it.
He licked and lapped more, like a dog trying to gather as much water into its maw as possible. All while poor Sunny melted in pure gleeful laughter.
Not fair!
Sun cackled out, squirming endlessly trying to get his tummy away from the ticklish treatment it was receiving. His rays began to spin happily again as he tossed his head around. The more and more he tickled, the better the laughter began to taste. Devo's internal hunger was insatiable, but he felt a lot better than he was, previously deteriorating due to lack of joy and laughter in his feeding grounds of late. Devo chuckled menacingly, reeling his tongue back in and blowing a huge raspberry in Sun's tummy. His devious fingers finally made their way, causing the daytime animatronic to turn manic. Ending the raspberry, Devo turned his faceplate to Moon.
You were saying?
Moon stared back at Devo, lightly pouting. Was he actually challenging him? He may have started it, but still! Sun was at least having fun. Even though he pretty much always did when he was tickled.
Are you okay, son?
Moon asked, ensuring his counterpart was having fun.
Fine. I'm fine.
screeched, only getting louder as Diva's claws seemed to stay in the sweet spot they had found.
Just a little.
Sun screeched as he felt claws gently graze the wires under his arms with expert precision. This guy was a natural. At the sound of Sun's screeching laughter, Diva focused on fluttering his fingers right where they were stationed.
This seems to be a very good spot.
Diva teased.
It produces such sweet giggles from you.
His mouth hung open as his shadow of a tongue lapped at the air lazily, collecting all the yummy cackles pouring out of Sun.
No! Help me!
Tickle, 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 little Sun.
What did he call? Oh, no! Sun was starting to feel the effects of the tickling. His fans working overtime to keep his systems nice and cool. This was insane! But Diva was still full of fun surprises. The next thing Sun knew, Diva was doing something so dastardly and yet so sweet at the same time.
Yum, 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 yum.
He began to eat his poor little tummy while he tickled circles into the wires. The Shadow's methods were like nothing he ever dealt with. Moon was mean and used tools sometimes, but that was the farthest he ever went. Sun squealed and arched with loud cackles. The teasing noises became all that much worse. Moon flinched. That seemed effective. And Sunny seemed to really enjoy this new method and his ticklishness. But someone's probably at his limit. Right?
No, nibbling!
The daytime bot squealed out. His rays spun faster, and his cheeks grew rosier by the second. He shook his hands and his feet wildly, his little slip was jingling rapidly with them. After a few more playful nips, Devo decided to give Sun a bit of a break. He could tell from the faint sound of whirring internal fans and panting that the animatronic was getting tired. The void raised up from the Sunbot, licking any excess glitter from his bombers. Sun's fans stayed steady as they cooled the bot down, while Sun let stray giggles and hiccups slip out as needed.
Oh, it stars.
Rays spinning, Sun relaxed against the parchment service table for a bit. The tickle monster finished cleaning his face before looking back down at Sun.
Ready to be set free, little Sunbud?
Evo assumed that Sun had had enough of the tickling. Not even Moon tickled Sun as long as he had.
Dear son, surely you're exhausted after that, right?
Moon chimed in, ready to end the ordeal. Processing the question, Sun looked away with a blush.
Actually,
What?
Sun was absolutely flabbergasted. Sun wanted more? Evo wrecked him to oblivion and he still wanted more tickles? Well, that's okay. Sun still liked his tickles, right? No, he was still the tickle monster. Devo would not take that title away from him. He liked the title too much.
More?
Devo questioned, a bit confused.
You are much too generous to my appetite. Are you sure?
Devo was cut off by Sun giving him puppy dog eyes, whining in a disappointed tone.
Think you're...
The words felt strange on Devo's tongue. However, this was really the first social interaction he's had, so it made sense.
Don't overdo it, son. You can stop whenever you want to. Don't feel obligated to keep...
Mommy, I genuinely want to be tickled.
Oh. Devo looked at Moon for the first time in a while, sensing the change of his soul's aura. Perhaps Moon felt left out? Jealous? Maybe he shouldn't have teased him so much earlier.
Where next then? You seem very eager.
Sun gave an embarrassed squeak. He looked to the side, rolling his ankles shyly. Seriously? He was going to make him choose? How cruel. Sunny gulped, nodding his head down towards his toes.
There, please?
Where?
Devo crooned.
You No.
Sun shook his feet, allowing the bells to direct Devo's attention toward them. The little bot gave a shy, wobbly smile, hoping that would be enough.
Do I now? I'm afraid I'm going to need you to spell it out for me.
Devo was now leaning on the table, chin in hand, with his elbow propping his head up. A knowing smirk spread across his face. Sun tossed his head in frustration. Moon watched the two banter back and forth, trying to forget his inner turmoil from before.
Well, go on, Sonny. If you really want more tickles, you better tell him where you want them.
Moon tittered to himself at Sun's stubbornness.
Okay, fine. Urgh.
Sun burst out.
Well then,
My feet?
Sun squeaked, his eyes shut tight and his rays sunken in shyly.
oh, the feet.
Devo teased, taking the orange slippers away and revealing the cute cat-like tootsies.
I always wondered what tater tots tasted like.
Suddenly out of squeals, Devo crouched down, rays spinning. Suddenly Devo's cape split off into sections. The tendrils were back.
Speaking of which, I'm also curious about something else as
There
well.
were several spots Devo knew he hadn't touched yet. He wanted to truly map out every goodie spot, every spot that would give the most food to him. The tendrils traveled to Sun's hips, to his knees, to his rays, and behind his back. Oh, he was dead.
What are you?
Just exploring, son. No need to fret.
Devo purred, allowing the tendrils to stroke around Sun's back. It would have felt good, if it didn't tickle so much.
No.
The tendrils reached the crease that connected Sun's top half of his torso to his bottom half.
Oh my. Is this another good spot? It seems like it.
Wait! No!
Sunny cackled out. Oh, he was in so much trouble. Not only was Devo positioned at his feet, so he had to touch them. And now those tendrils from before were doing their own exploring, looking for new spots to tickle. Moon's jaw dropped at the sight. He didn't even think about the fact that those tendrils could be used for that. He could already feel a pout coming on. How was he supposed to compete with that? At the same time, watching this guy work was kind of memorizing to look at. Not fair, so cool. Not fair, so cool. He didn't know what to think at this point. The animatronic settled the battle within himself by choosing to forget about it. It likely wasn't a big deal anyway. Devo was just better than him in every single way. It's fine.
Squirming, are we? This won't do at all.
Devo teased, using his claws to hold Sun's feet, lightly tracing everywhere with his thumbs except the paw pads.
Perhaps this is why tater tots are considered to be fast food.
He tried to nibble the tater tots, catching Sun off guard and eliciting a shriek from him. The one on the side ledge started fidgeting with his hands.
Scott H. Gotham, does that look fun?
Huh? Why did he think that? The tendrils tickled very lightly over Sun's kneecaps, finding the backs to be pretty ticklish, as well as the spinning rays. He really only needed one tendril to tickle them with. Then came the upper back and neck. Had Sun ascended? Sure felt like it. Devo seemed to be a master among masters, and I think he was so menacing at first, followed by being adorably shy, and then becoming a hack. Those tendrils were like wiggly, snuffly bunny kisses, and Devo was like a pecking puppy himself. He was certainly an enigma, but Sun liked him. Maybe he'd stick around. The tendrils slithered around Sun's back, and a light brush to the loop was just enough to pull Sun out of his thoughts with another ticklish scream. A curious stare from Devo and a jolted Moon to look up.
What are you guys looking at me for?
Sun knew full well what had happened. Devo stumbled upon one of the most ticklish spots on he and Moon's bodies. The back loop was a spot Sun and Moon had a truce on during tickle fights. If one of them went there, they meant business. So in a way, the fact that their back loops weren't as accustomed to tickles made them even more susceptible to the gentle play. Moon's stare whipped over to Devo nervously. Normally Moon would have teased the snot out of Sun in this moment, but since he was not wanting to control the situation, and a new tickle monster was in the room learning more and more about both of them, the last thing he needed was for this guy to discover that spot.
It was just Sun being dramatic. Right, Sun?
Right. Just little old dramatic me.
Sun blurted out in a rush.
No, dramatic you.
Devo assumed a thinking position after rising up from the delicious little tater tots.
It appears to be more than that, wouldn't you think?
The rest of the tendrils retracted except for one located on his back, circling the location of the loop.
I have a sneaking suspicion. You're both lying. Curious. Truly curious. You wouldn't mind if I tested that theory, would you?
Sun gulped, the shadow of ticklish expectation ghosting the back of his neck like a feather. He gave Moon a pleading look. One Moon returned.
Well, if,
Sun looked at Devo embarrassed.
please be gentle.
Moon covered his face in secondhand bluster. Oh, no, he couldn't watch. Well, maybe he could. However, he probably wouldn't be able to without trying to reach back and cover his own loop.
Of course. I'll be sure to be very gentle, little breakfast pastry.
Devo drew closer, and closer, and closer, until he turned his tendril into a large, fluffy feather made out of tinier and tinier tendrils.
Oh no.
The two collectively thought before the feather touched down. Poor Sun felt every single nerve tingle and scream, and watching in horror, so did Moon.
No.
I can barely get the words out thanks to the ticklish saps. Moon shivered out of sympathy.
Well. Seems like this is such a good spot.
Devo had his head propped up in a hammock made out of his hands at the end of the table, watching the adorable chaos before him. He soaked up every little squeak and cackle from the air. Moon had his eyes covered, kicking his feet unconsciously, while imagining what Sun was feeling in the moment. He occasionally split his fingers apart to view the scene in front of him out of irresistible curiosity, only to bring them together again out of embarrassment. Sun screamed, showing that he indeed was quite the dramatic one. But goodness, whatever Devo was doing was just so tickly. It was like a feather, but worse.
Oh, what's the matter? Does it tickle?
The dark form cooed devilishly.
So bad! Morning! Help me! Help me!
Sun shrieked out, arching his back off the table below and wiggling as much as he was allowed. Moon immediately let out a squeal of his own under his breath. He practically saw a close-up of the feather, each little plume being a much tinier tendril. Moon curled in on himself, covering his eyes back up.
Sonny,
He was just about as giggly as Sun, though obviously less manic.
Absolutely delectable. How long did you think you were going to hide this spot, sweet little pastry? So much food in such little time, and with a feather no less.
That was his breaking point.
Oh no! Stop! Stop!
Devo halted the feather, retracting it and remerging the feather with his cape. The tickles dissipated. Sun gasped for the air that he technically didn't need while a storm of giggles flushed out of him. He just needed a moment to calm down. Devo hummed a chuckle.
You are more than filling, Sunny Roll.
He licked his jagged teeth.
Perhaps I'll just have to feast on you more in the future.
More? Sun felt his faceplate heat up while Moon looked up from his hands.
Oh, well, that could be fun.
Moon felt a little disheartened. Was Sunny going to replace him with this guy?
Does that mean you're, sticking around?
Moon asked cautiously. Devo stood up, straightening his back before turning to address Moon.
Well, yes. This has been my home for a while now. It has everything I need, so I see no point in leaving anytime soon.
Gave a hum of confirmation, trying not to sound disappointed at the statement. He didn't have a right to be jealous. Why was he feeling this way? Is it because being the tickle monster was the only way Moon was ever truly able to play? He had a role to live up to. He was the monster, not anyone else. If they called him a monster, he had to prove it somehow, right? Make it less of an insult and more of a compliment.
we would love to have you visit the daycare.
Sun beamed while Moon started to undo the buckles of the strap holding Sun down. Yeah, totally.
Of course, that will be after hours. I choose to be distant from children.
Sun and Moon could have sworn a look of fear flashed in the void's eyes, dissipating or snapping back into reality.
Oh, yes. Whenever you feel comfortable visiting, we'll welcome you with open arms.
Moon snorted, poking Sun's cheeks.
More like raised arms.
Gave a squeaky giggle before poking at the other's tummy and sides.
You're no better, you know, Moon.
Says you.
Moon snorted, giggling himself as he lazily pushed Sun's hands away. Devo watched them, a soft look of fondness cross his dark features. They were so cute. Sweet, too. Extremely sweet. The dark shadow chuckled to himself, gliding towards the pair and scooping them up into his arms. Sun Moon squeaked in surprise at the sudden gesture. He squirmed a bit in distaste before deciding to cross his arms and allow the shadow to hold him. Devo still wasn't accustomed to asking permission for contact, but the two daycare attendants didn't seem too bothered by him picking them up like a pair of kittens. Sun seemed to enjoy the ride as per his exhaustion.
What are you doing?
Moon spoke up, trying to understand Devo's newest motive for handling them. Sun was already snuggling in, making himself comfortable to rest his eyes a bit.
I'm taking you back to your room, of course.
Devo replied nonchalantly, making his way back to the stairwell he used earlier. Sun sleepily murped, trying to keep awake enough to at least get ready for bed. Moon, on the other hand, acted like a grumpy cat, lowly yowling to himself. Moon turned to speak to his counterpart before noticing the raid bot resting his faceplate on the bony arms of Devo. Poor thing. The phantom chuckled lightly at the sleepy bot, finally reaching the daycare doors. After nudging Sun awake gently, Devo lowered the two back onto the ground, Sun barely managing to balance himself.
This is as far as I will go. I do not trust the lights or cameras yet in this area.
Sun gave a yawn, using Moon as support while he rubbed his eyes.
Thanks, Steve-Ho. Nighty-night.
Moon took a hold of the dosing bottle slowly.
Yes. Good night.
Devo gave a small bow.
But of course. Have a good rest, you both. I'll be looking forward to playing again.